really?
That's cool.
Are we on? Okay, great. Good evening and welcome to the October 24th, 2013 Board of Selectmen meeting. As we often and always do these days, we have our favorite town administrator read the agenda for us, please.
6 o'clock, called to order. 6:05, public comment. Then having Energy Committee with Jane Push and Michael Lesser come in, give an update. And they'll be talking, I'm sure, about the solar challenge. And 6:30, we have the Disability Advisory Committee, and specifically about the assisted listening devices. Proclamation, an Eagle Scout proclamation for Dylan Morris Baruti and Connor Crosby Walsh. And 6:50 PM joint advisory Board of Selectmen warrant guidance letter. 7:10, I have a little bit for a town administrator report. And then we'll look at Selectmen minutes, approval of warrants, and set the next meeting. And then an executive session regarding union contract negotiations for police lieutenant, police chief, town administrator, and litigation involving the new cell tower.
Great.
Possibility of a new cell tower.
There you go. Great. Any amendments to this agenda, gentlemen? You're good, Mike? You're good, Paul?
I'm
I'll
good.
take a motion to approve the agenda as read.
Too much on it for the
Yes.
second game of the World Series.
Yeah, tell me about it, tell me about it. So a motion to approve the agenda and
Motion approved, Peter.
seconded, all in favor? Great, off we go to the races. That puts us to public comment section. I see Nancy Hess back there, ready to come up to the table and microphone.
First of all, I would like to thank David and Diane for getting our new drop box installed on the front of the building. So in time for our deadline on taxes, everyone should admire it. It's in the same place the other one was, but it's a super duper model. So
New and
we are
improved.
back in business with having a place for people to leave their payments or mail for you guys or whatever when we're closed, the building's closed.
So
Yeah.
we
She
don't
gave
need
me
a tour of that the other day. That was good.
Yes.
Nancy gave you a tour?
Yeah,
of
she
it?
showed me how it's set up. It was actually very.
She really wanted you
It
to
was
put
very
some money
thought
in,
through.
right?
It was very
Yes.
thought
Yeah.
through.
I want to make sure you all can pay your taxes whether we're here or not.
Yeah.
So we don't need to pay our taxes this year?
Uh-huh.
That's the part I'm hearing.
You'll take small coins?
Then I want to apologize to the taxpayers if they had problems getting onto the tax bill online website after I came to the meeting and said, oh, everybody can get their tax bill early. They've had some significant problems over the last few weeks, and it's been up and down and up and down. So I do know we got some calls from people who needed assistance on that. I want to thank the early taxpayers who responded to my plea. Once again, we were able to go through the dry period with no borrowing because we had a response right away in that first week, and we're able to cover our obligations. I want to remind everybody that next Friday, a week from tomorrow, is November 1st, and payments must be in the office. And if you got a Hometown Weekly or Dover Sherborn Press, there are reminders in there. Since we're not usually open on Friday, I want to be sure people understand we will be open all day on Friday till 6 o'clock for collections. And in fact, we plan to be open until 3 on Thursday, which is Halloween night. We don't want to be open into the evening, but we're going to extend hours for the convenience of people who want to come in early. And I just remind you that if you wait until Friday and something happens either to the website or to your car or illness, it doesn't forgive that 14% that goes back a month. So I would urge you not to wait to the last day. And that's all.
Great, thanks a lot. Anything else? Look at Elliot, so, sure, Elliot, yes, please.
I have a couple of comments. I gotta go over there.
Well, most people do, but if you speak loudly, I think you'll be fine, Elliot. And I've always, you're welcome to go over there.
Hold my hand. One thing I mentioned, we have a new access road to Pine Hill School. It's just been built in the last 10 days. And that should be a great asset to the emergency situations at Pine Hill School. We have a 2-minute time limit at town meeting with someone sitting back with a stopwatch. If anybody talks over 2 minutes, they are interrupted and asked to sit down. I think this is unconstitutional, outrageous, and should be abolished immediately. I think the selectmen should consult with town council and maybe the state attorney general's office to see if we can do away with this nonsense. There's been a couple of times in past town meetings, last year in particular, where I was just starting to get rolling and my 2 minutes was up and I was asked to sit down. And I think that is just simply outrageous. And I'll also mention, I've been pleading with you for quite a while to get rid of the bark mulch around the trees. The bark mulch is still there. I'll say it again. Will you please get rid of the damn bark mulch? Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Any other public comment while we have the time? Good. Well, the next thing on the agenda is our Energy Committee. You guys want to go early, or you want to wait till 6:15? You go early?
I'm ready.
Oh, you're ready. Excellent. So the only thing is your audience, if they decide to just tune in at 6:15, they might miss some of the beginning of what you have to say. Your call. We're happy to cover a little old business or new business.
I have another meeting at 7 o'clock, so.
Well, we're only 15 minutes, so
Yeah,
till 6:30, is that all right?
You'd like to go early? Go for it.
Good, fine.
They have a lot of energy, this committee,
Hey, Joe, that's, you've been working on that one all day, I
All
bet.
right.
all day.
Do you guys get scripted?
That's it.
Please sit
Try to
down,
keep Pat
and
awake, that's all.
you guys have been pretty busy.
we have. It's a good thing.
You're gonna sit, why don't you move down to the other chair? I'll give a little, hi,
Hi.
Michael Lesser,
Hi, Michael.
co-chair of the Energy Committee. I'll give a little overview, and Jane could fill in on some parts of it. The Energy Committee has been focusing on doing the projects that are outlined in its Green Community Grant. We're trying to finish up everything by the end of this calendar year.
Yep.
And so I'll come back to that. It's also doing work on solar PV in a number of areas. Jane will talk about the residential. We've looked at some stuff on the buildings, but right now there's a little bit of a period of delay while some of the state level policies are refined as to some of the financial incentives. So it's a little hard to make a decision. The state, to some extent, is actually moving relatively rapidly for a state entity to come up with new rules and regs for a program that basically met its goals quite early, and therefore is setting up new goals and new kind of standards, trying to do that quickly within a number of months, which for a state entity of this kind of policy is not too bad. They hopefully will come out later this month with a draft of these new rules, and then they'll hopefully finalize soon, so by January there'll be more certainty in what they're going to be offering, and they're a large part of the financial revenue from a solar project. So some of the solar stuff is, well, Jane will talk about the residential side, but some of the stuff for the buildings is a little in delay until we see that resolved. On the Green Community Grant Project, we finished our largest project, which is redoing all the lighting at the Pine Hill School, which included retrofitting almost all the lights in the building, putting sensors and occupancy sensors in all the rooms, and for about 9 classrooms, actually putting in new fixtures in other parts as part of that commitment to maintaining the building. And we're about to, in the next month or so, we're finalizing right now, and we'll probably do in the next month or so, the town hall, police station, and the fire station, and a little add-on to the
Of lights?
Yeah, the lights.
Yeah.
All these lights will be replaced with a little bit more efficient lighting.
Yep.
Overall, unfortunately for Pine Hill, for the first time in 5 years, they had a meter error and breakdown, so we couldn't, I would like to tell you how much they saved.
But they'll see that over time, certainly, right?
Well, no, you could tell right away.
Right away.
Basically, month to month, you can look back a year. I mean, my first estimate is that maybe we'd save about 20%
Really?
of the energy overall
Wow.
there. We'll try to convert that all into numbers for budget people, which is obviously the budget season coming up. I mean, overall, the grant has about $137,000. I'd estimate overall that for all the projects, you'd have enough of payback that I'd like to think that would probably save $15,000 to $20,000 in energy costs in various places
Over the course of a year.
in the course of a year,
Yeah.
which is sort of overall maybe about a 7-year payback.
Yeah.
There's different periods of paybacks for different projects. And we try to fit in things, besides doing the buildings, we're also going to try to squeeze in doing the traffic signal there, which looks like it has quite a sort of a 3 or 4 year payback to put in LED bulbs in the existing fixtures, and they can be salvaged if you try to upgrade there. So overall, I mean, there's prospects of higher, but it's always a little hard with the baselines because you never know what other uses are changing in the buildings. So it's a little tricky, as I just realized that Pine Hill put in freezers, for example, and so it's a little different baseline at some points. But, so we're moving ahead with that, and hopefully we'll be through with that by the end of the year, but hopefully beforehand we'll just come up with some rough estimates for budgeting kind of ideas. I mean, the biggest thing is really for sort of Pine Hill, where maybe they could save about $1,000 a month or something like that on the
Yeah.
electricity bill. And the library, we probably already know, and hopefully they're incorporating, since that was done before the last heating season, and they should be able to do it, and should be in their budget now, a much more lower energy cost.
Do you have any sense of disruption at Pine Hill? Because that was a fairly extensive project, and, you know, we wrote the check last week, I think we authorized it.
Yeah,
in
we
our
got, the
warrant.
contractors, we all worked hard, and
Yeah.
the custodian worked very nicely there, and we got it all done just before school started.
Beautiful.
Squeezed it in, and there's only been a few little snafus, little things like a hot switch or
Yeah.
underneath the thermostat and the room's cold,
Exciting.
but that was fixed today, but the contractor's been quite responsive.
That was a
in doing
big
that.
slug of the grant, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was basically a little bit more than half the grant
Yeah.
went over there, and that's going to have a lot of the savings there. I mean, there were a lot of savings to be had. Some of the buildings here, things are a little bit newer, so the paybacks are not as attractive. But besides the energy cost savings, it's harder to quantify the fact that you have maintenance
That's right.
savings,
That's
because
right.
basically the custodian, you don't have to do
You
all
gotta
the bulk.
replace bulbs or whatever, and so you're
Right,
starting
and even at
fresh.
Pine Hill, they were starting to do, they have to replace the ballast. It's not as
Yeah.
simple as the bulbs. And a lot of the bulbs that are out here are there. They'll be all in there, because we'll probably do all these with LED things. That'll also, not
Mhm.
only save the maintenance, but then the prospect for future maintenance is a lot less,
Yeah,
because they last a lot longer. But it gets tricky. We're trying to negotiate. There's some timing issues, because we're also working with the fire station on their heating project, and we have to make sure we get some of the timing right on maybe some insulation work there as to whether we could fit that in the timing of our grant, or whether we use it some other way.
so if you don't use all the money in the grant, whatever's not used within a certain period of time is forfeited, is that how
Oh,
that
no,
works?
we're gonna use it.
You'll use it, okay,
will
but if you
find- we
didn't,
will
it could be forfeited, is that
No,
correct?
I think there are ways to get, when if
Okay.
it's not much left, that you can probably find ways to get an extension for that.
And
But
will
I'd
there be
like to
new
set-
grant opportunities coming forward?
That would be the next phase, right, that
I
we would
see.
try to look forward, once you finish that, I mean, and then we could, the committee looking forward, we could think about whether new grants or other activities we haven't
Yeah.
quite thought through, just trying to get through this phase of getting these projects done. I mean, there were also the projects that were done from the automobiles with the anti-idling devices in the police.
Not to cut into your time, Jane, but your committee's done some great stuff, and I ran into one of your fellow committee members today out in the parking lot, and he was driving in his truck, and we were chit-chatting, so finally he says, oh, I'm on the energy committee, I gotta turn my car off, not idle.
Yes,
Mindset.
that's been a long-standing issue, such as on the line in Pine Hill School. I mean, there's the signs that I guess Jane put up there, but it's a little tricky to convince people that they can sit in their car without
Yeah, without
it
it.
running and stuff like that. But the payback, I mean, the anti-idling on the police cars, I mean, it isn't as attractive as we thought it would be, but it still seems to be attractive, because it's that guess mark of how much do they really use it, and how many idle hours. But it looks like it's still worth it, and we'll probably try to squeeze one in a CMD vehicle to see if that's worth it as a little bit of a demonstration, and and until you do these things, you never know what the parameters are, like how often are they really just sitting around idling in a way that these devices can help out. So it'll be useful just to do one there, just to even get the data.
So, Michael, you mentioned Pine Hill. Is there any program for the regional school, or is there an opportunity there also? Whether with the grant
There is
or
an
otherwise?
opportunity. It's not part of because it's over in Dover, but I've had discussions with the head of facilities there, and I've been working with them. I said I would work with them on that, and they're going to try to get audited, and sometime in the next month or two, is what I understand. They had an order from before that they could just get updated. So there might be some indications of stuff there, but since that's a newer building, I think the sense is that there's probably a little less to be found there. So we'll see. And we might look onto some of the heating stuff, like there's issues with the police and some of the issues there, as well as at the Pine Hill School. There are contractors who are hungry to do work that, I mean, you got to be careful you get what you pay for, but in terms of them coming in to do their own kind of audits. But it's a matter of whether we can be critical enough and get enough different opinions to see whether there's some other things in town on the heating side that we could do. Because there's clearly energy management issues. There's a whole set of housekeeping issues that I'd like to move on to in another phase. I mean, whether it's just a simple weather strips on doors and stuff like that,
Right.
and how these things are controlled, that I think there's a lot of that kind of housekeeping and issues of how do you maintain the buildings, and who does it, and whose responsibility is. That's a broader issue that's been around here before, in terms of that whole issue of an energy facilities manager, and to what extent does that pay for itself, or in some minor ways. But there's clearly a whole set of those little non-sexy but minor things that can make a difference, and that I'd like to think we could focus on a little going forward. But I'll turn it over to Jane, who has to go somewhere, as to...
Before you do,
Oh, yeah.
I just want to put this into context for our residents, that some years ago, we opted to become a green community. And that's a choice the state gives to different cities and towns in the Commonwealth. There were steps that we had to do to get there, and that included revamping a whole variety of codes, and adopt the stretch energy building code and a few other things. Part of becoming a green community, we got this grant. And as part of this grant was a commitment by the state and by the town to implement energy reductions. So the Energy Committee has been working to actually implement the goals of reducing our energy needs. And the project you've been describing at Pine Hill School and others are part of using that grant money to implement the energy improvements. The point of all that entire green energy program is to reduce the overall usage of electricity and other fossil fuels over time, so we become less energy dependent and more energy efficient. And so all these little steps, like weather stripping, may sound small individually, but they add up. And step by step, improvement by improvement, it then changes the energy usage level so that long term we should be using less and less as a community than we did before. And that should alleviate, if everybody in the state did the same thing, that would have a tremendous impact on our importation of foreign fuels, our energy dependence, and all the rest. So there are other communities in the state doing the same thing that we're doing as part of, we're all doing
Right.
this together. It's a joint effort.
It is important. I mean, whether it's too political an issue, right, it does reduce our carbon footprint for those of us who believe that climate change is a real issue. This is the kind of stuff you need to do to make a difference. Energy efficiency in some ways is the easier and more cost-effective way than a lot of the sort of renewable energy and other things, and so, in terms of making a difference. And it's little things that we still even have to look at a Pine Hill, like just putting little reducers on the faucets so that the water flow is lessened. You lessen basically the pumping for the water, you lessen hot water usage and the energy use for that. It's all that kind of little parts to the many little solutions, well, is what it's going to take to make a difference in the bigger way. But right, so that is a good description of the bigger part here. Overall, we did, at the time, we wrote a plan for 20% reduction in the town's energy use, which we're probably going to meet, although we haven't had time to actually do all the tallying to see where we really are. But obviously, getting these projects in place are going to make a big difference in that, especially in Pine Hill, since it's our biggest. But on the other hand, the heating side is always a little tricky, because that's major. But stuff at the fire station will make a tremendous difference. I mean, you'll probably go from a 60, 70% efficient old steam boiler to probably 95% efficient hot water heating system there. So you'll get these kind of changes that are going to also add up over time.
Yeah, let me
Right.
just emphasize the fact that this is not a one-time savings. That the weather stripping today means savings every year,
Right.
year after year going forward. So thank you.
Sure. You could do your solar.
All right, there you go.
Can she do her solar, Elliot, and then,
Oh.
Elliot, you
Yeah,
had
I'd
a,
like to comment on
oh,
this.
okay, go
Oh,
quickly,
go ahead.
yeah? Sure.
The lighting outside of this building is terrible. We have these stupid globe lights all over the parking lot that shine out to the planet Neptune, but you get 15 feet away from the things and you can't see anything on the parking lot. So they could be stones, sticks, dead squirrels, beer bottles, whatever,
Yep.
and you can't see them. The front steps here, there are shadows that make it very difficult to see where the steps are. One of our selectmen about 10 years ago, Elaine Yanchik, fell out here on the front steps. And while you're playing around with all these electricians and wiring and lights and so on and so on, I think you might shine some lights down on our parking lot and steps rather than out to the planet Neptune and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a quick reply. The scope of our work on doing with energy efficiency and even the funding that we receive is focusing on it's tricky to go to the next step and much more expensive than we have the funding to actually go through measuring, for example, in here, are there too many lights in here? Should we actually be knocking out fixtures and disconnecting it? But in general, it's that question of, it's a little trickier to deal with the actual design that we originally were given with. So I agree with you that there's those fixtures out there waste a lot of light. But unfortunately, they don't use a lot of energy at this point. But I would agree with you that we've tried to do some of those changes when it fits within the kind of budgets, like at the Pine Hill School. A lot of the lighting there on the outside has been directed downward so that there's a lot of light that just doesn't get sprayed around. So when possible, we've been dealing with it, but to some extent, it's often beyond the scope of what we can do. But I agree with you as an issue.
While
Yeah.
you're changing lights,
All right.
Okay.
shine them down.
Whenever we're
Thanks.
changing them, they're shining down.
All right, great.
Hi, well, changing gears a little. Got a couple of things to update you on tonight. First one can be the idle right devices that we put in a couple of police vehicles in December and January last year. So it's been almost a year, and we've got some numbers to share. The cost of the devices was $1,200 to put in, and that came out of our Green Community Grant money. That $1,200 cost, doing a little bit of prorating on those two vehicles, has saved about $370 in 1 year. So it's going to be about a 3.5 year payback period. So I just want to thank Chief Thompson over there and Sergeant Bento for being the champions at the police station for getting those devices installed and going along with the whole idea. We really appreciate that. So these devices, basically, when the lights are turned on and the blue lights are running and the car would stop and be in park, the lights are using up electricity in the battery. So the car automatically shuts off when it's in park and they go off to talk to whoever they need to talk to, and the lights are going. And then when the lights drain enough of the battery power, the idle right turns the car back on as a remote, and then that brings the battery back up to speed, and then it shuts the engine off again, and the lights continue to work, and that's fine. So we're pretty happy with how it went. And the feedback I've gotten from Sergeant Bento is that it hasn't had any negative impact on operations. So it's really nice that it's kind of worked in seamlessly and that people are using it. This might even be an underestimate, this $370, because this was mostly during winter months, and one of the vehicles was on duty doing commercial traffic enforcement. So he would take the car into a parking lot and stop the truck there and turn the car off completely instead of leaving the blue lights running, which would have caused the idle right to be in effect and timing how long the car was not using its engine. Any questions about that? Concerns?
It
No.
just, it just sounds like the payback actually is even better because it wasn't our money to begin with. So everything that's coming in is, or everyone is saving is town savings, which is really good.
Correct. Yes.
To
Yes.
some extent, we have to use that as a rank of priority of projects.
Sure.
So that we make sure we're
Yeah.
putting it to good use.
Right. Because our goal is to reduce our overall energy consumption by 20% over the 5 years. That was the commitment that we made. So this idle right is one of the small pieces of the puzzle.
And you did contribute that money through your electric bill. Everyone has
That's true.
contributed to
That's
this
true.
fund that we have through a little fee on your electricity.
That's
pricing.
true. That's where the money comes from. So it kind of has come back, which is good. Yeah. The solar challenge is going to be wrapping up in less than a month, but it's done fabulous. Thank you, David and Paul, for being part of that video. There's a video now showing on cable TV. That's an interview of several homeowners and various people who are, it's got Ed Rose in it, describing their experience with solar. We have 51 proposals out there, so those are seriously considering having solar, and 3 people have already signed to do a solar project on their home or business. And we have about another 50 sites that haven't been visited yet, but they will be. And we hope to get some contracts, some more contracts signed. As Michael mentioned, the DOER has not come out with the new guidelines for the SRECs. So it's a new phase, it's a new way of being reimbursed for the amount of solar electricity a person generates with their project. And when those regulations come out, I think it's really going to open the floodgates, because then people will know exactly how long their payback period will be. There's some talk of forward minting, which would be fabulous, so we'll see if that happens. But it will really speed up the payback period of a solar project, which is currently about 4 to 6 years. It'll speed it up to a 1-year payback period. and then you get free electricity for 20 years. So it's a very affordable time to consider solar. And, oh, there's going to be a meeting or a Solar 101 presentation at the Dover Library on Monday, November 4th at 6:30 for anyone who's interested in learning more about it.
Great,
Thanks.
terrific. Any questions, Chance?
Well, just to continue my solar pitch that I've been doing for years, solar power is the way to go. It's free. That is, the sun is free. It costs to install the equipment, but the sun is free, and it's there forever. So you have your installation charge, but the energy source is clean. It's free. It has no disposable radioactive rods that you have to figure out what to do with. It, again, as a community and as a Commonwealth and as a nation, we need to reduce our energy use for the protection of our environment. So this has the benefits of assisting everyone individually, because it'll ultimately save you money, but collectively it makes the world a better place and helps us carry on our stewardship to the next generation with as little impact as possible. So I encourage everyone to go solar, and I encourage the town to do more, particularly all our town buildings should think about putting solar panels on them.
Since we have, who knows what broader audience, I'd like to say that the process of possibly seeing if the solar works for your house, that you can go to the town website. There's a link to solar, to the Sherborn Solar Challenge there, and that you don't have to worry too much about whether your house is good or not. The company is set up, this company that we're working with, Solar Flare, will do the review of that. It's not a very time-consuming process. They'll probably even do a pre-assessment, even whether it's worthwhile not to waste their time and your own time, so that it's a fairly easy thing to do. Don't even have to worry about, oh, am I oriented right, or the tree is too much shaded. They'll take care of doing that sort of quick assessment for you. So in that way, if you have any idea or interest in it at all, just try it. And there's a whole set of options, even if you don't want to come up with money up front, that there's ways they can lease your roof and other kind of things. So there's a whole range of financial options to practically putting down no money to getting a higher return if you do put down some money. So you can end up with zero, or maybe paying $10,000 or $15,000 after all the tax credits. For many houses, where you can get a very high return on that. You might get a 5-year, $2,000 a year savings. The SRECs that Jane mentioned is sort of, in a way, a fee that the state pays just to get renewable energy for all of its environmental benefits and to promote this kind of technology. And that's the thing that's a little up in the air as to how much they're to pay, and it's probably half the revenue for these kind of projects. So it's just a matter of setting that rate. It's still going to be there. And her idea, what she called minting, was the fact that you can basically sell this renewable energy for the next 20 years all today. So you can get credit for it all up front, and that sort of reduces your initial cost. And that's an idea that might come forward, which would lower the upfront cost for a lot of the systems. But since who knows what audience we have, I thought I'd put in more of the plug.
So when you say there's proposals outstanding, those are from the supplier to the homeowner saying, here's how it could work and what they estimate your savings?
It's all the
would be-
financial details, the
Yeah,
specifics.
okay.
You can sign on it's literally a contract. You can sign on
Yeah,
the line, and then
okay.
you see, and they give alternatives in terms of
Understood.
whether you want to put a little money or less money, or more money.
And you have a
down.
number of evaluations in the pipeline, is what I think I heard you say, right? Is that correct?
Yes, we have 51 proposals out there. So 51 people have had solar flare come to their home where the sun eye was used to check how much
Light
electricity
comes,
could
yep,
be
yep.
touching your rooftop or ground mount. So there are 51 of those out there. People have it in hand, what their numbers are, because each site is different. And there are about another 50 who are going to be getting site visits because they have a pretty good location. Michael's right. If you call 508-808-4631.
Call now.
In the next 15 minutes, you'll get our dedicated solar rep. And he will look up and within a few minutes be able to tell you if you've got a viable site or not.
Sure.
If you do, then you go into this bucket
Yeah.
of site visits to be set up. Right now, we have 50 site visits that are pending.
Gotcha.
So there are 50 good sites out there, but he hasn't taken the Sun Eye over and given them the proposal. There are another 50 who over the last few months did have their site visits, and those people have their proposals in hand. 3 people have signed so far. We would like to get about 40 signed, and I expect we will once the new SREC guidelines come out. SREC stands for Solar Renewable Energy Credit. And anyway, solarflare.com has on their front page a Sherborn Solar Challenge blue and yellow button. So people just need to click on that, and it takes them to an individual Sherborn web page where they can fill out their information that way if they don't want to call the number.
But we have a link on our website, correct?
And our website links to the Solar Flare.
The town's website.
Yes, the town website
Yeah.
links. to
We
that.
probably have to do the disclaimer that it's not a town program. Solar Flare is one of many manufacturers and suppliers
Yeah.
who work in this area. It's just somebody that we've teamed up with, has a good record of working with other towns
Understood.
and these kind of townwide programs. But we can easily give you the name of other companies if you wanted to get competing bids. And so just wanted to make sure people realize that.
I had a comment and a question. The comment is, I'm just very impressed with your committee. It's great to have a committee come in here with goals and objectives and being able to measure what you've done and implementing an important program for the town like this so efficiently, so thank you. And the second was, I know a year or two ago there was talk about, and there were companies around that were looking for basically solar facilities, fields and rooftops and places where they could put their solar equipment to generate electricity and lease it from you. And I had understood the town at one point was entertaining an idea, or at least was approached by somebody. Is there any of that going on? Is there an opportunity there as a revenue-raising measure for the town, or is that something that's not practical?
We are, right now, the CM&D building, it has a new roof, and it is somewhat southerly oriented. Doesn't have to be perfectly south, by the way, to be, a good site. So that is one building that's seriously being considered for putting panels on. And I think you might be referring to a couple of years ago when we were looking at putting panels in the landfill, the transfer station. But what was the issue with that? It was too hilly or something?
The shape,
Or it was-
Topography.
It's not a particularly cost-effective.
But it sounds like there's ongoing investigation
Yeah,
of whether the
it'll be
town has an
continued.
asset or resource that could be used to generate solar energy and money.
Right, and it's partially waiting to see how the state policies are. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, it was a bit more attractive to do it. But the market has changed a bit for various reasons. But yeah, so the landfill, the capped landfill turned out to be a little less attractive given its scale and the cost of actually doing the work there.
Michael, didn't we team up with other communities, and didn't MAPC
Right.
do an RFP, and
They did that.
Tried
It
to
turned
find-
out that firm, I guess I shouldn't, it seems a little up in the air how effective that firm is carrying out that regional effort.
they were supposed to be reviewing a number of
They
communities,
did some
including
review.
Sherborn, including
Yeah.
our landfill.
We
and
had some review from them, but it wasn't it's always all these questions on some of these buildings, like with Pine Hill, it always comes up, what could it support? What's the age of the roof now? What is it gonna cost? And the complexity of saying, fine, after 7 years, you take the panels down, replace the roof, put it back up, it's maybe $1 a panel or something. It gets much more marginal economics when you're dealing with some of those more complex roofing issues that a lot of these buildings seem to have in our town, and the orientation issues. So, and that tends to make it a little harder for the developers to just sort of jump up and say, oh, great, I really want to do a deal with you guys. But partly at this point now, I think it's just a policy, because the larger sites are going to have a slightly less attractive, probably incentive in the next round, and so people really want to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah, but we're not taking our eye off that
Oh, yeah.
ball. We're, we're going to keep watching for the opportunity to do it.
It's great.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And hope you get out in time. All right, next up, we have on the agenda the Disability Advisory Committee. So how... Frank, you're coming up too? Right.
Yeah, he's a member.
Excellent. So, tell us who we have tonight.
We have 3 members of the Disability Advisory Committee. Thursday Campbell is our chairman, Frank Hess is a member, and I'm also a member. I'm representing the, I would say, hearing impaired in the town of Sherborn, and have become an advocate for the system that we have in place now. Just a little background. When our town administrator took his position back in, June, July, I had a chance to speak to David and explained to him how difficult it is for members with hearing impairment to hear anything in this room. And I really want to commend David for taking the responsibility. In a sense, he took the ball and ran with it. We know that there is the American with Disabilities Act. The regulations were altered in March of 2011, making it very clear and stipulating that public places were obliged to provide some kind of auxiliary hearing system for the residents or those in the meeting. And we achieved that, and I think it was, in some ways, it was almost seamless. We had the announcement from David in August that the system was in place, came over and tried it, and it's FM. David might have more details, but it's tied into an FM system, and we have auxiliary microphones that we hear. And I just can only say that when I first tried it, the clarity that I experienced was unbelievable. Having sat here and listened to mumble jumble, and suddenly I could hear every word that was being said. So that our interest really is promoting this, and we're here for a picture opportunity with the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
You knew that, didn't you?
We were told just before, but how do I look?
I would have worn the uniform if I'd known, Peter.
Yeah.
An article did appear shortly after the system was installed in The Link, which is our local newspaper, but we really want to expand it to a larger audience, if you will, hoping more residents in Sherborn and even Dover will pick it up and realize that there's an opportunity, a really incredibly important opportunity to provide an inclusive experience for every resident in this town and any other town that needs it. It's just a way of acknowledging that people with disabilities have needs that need to be addressed in a very timely fashion. So that's, unless you have questions for me, that's my introduction to our photo op.
Excellent.
Well, I wanted to say a couple of things. First, I want to thank you for bringing this issue forward. It's an improvement not just for the hearing impaired. Rather, every time we do something for those who have needs, we do something for all of us. We make the world a better place for everyone. And the mission of the Disabilities Committee has always been to be promoting the inclusiveness of all people with all backgrounds and all challenges, so they can participate in their government and live good lives without discrimination, without barriers, without making their lives harder than they already are. So I thank the Disability Committee, and particularly want to recall for Thursday how some years ago I had this idea of having a disability committee, and so I tried to recruit Thursday to serve on that, be the founding member, and she was hesitant and she played hard to get. And I had to
Isn't that true, Jim?
I had to go after her many times, but finally she relented and she said that she would serve on this committee. And Thursday, thank you for all those years that you've helped this community and our society be a better place. Thank you.
Right.
You're welcome. The next public space we are expecting to make available hearing assist is the Mudge Auditorium, where the town meeting is held. Frank, do you want to explain further?
Right. With our work here and your success here, it was brought up that at the last town meeting, I think that you were worried about having some sort of assistance. And I think you're talking about signing, but not everyone can do that. So I brought up this information that Jim Campbell made available to David, and that David shared with me about what the system using here, and I gave that to Stephen Bliss, the superintendent, and he's going to take it to his AV person at the region, and he thinks that perhaps the Mudge Foundation could help fund the improvements they need at the Mudge Auditorium, but he's also looking at Pine Hill and Chickering. So he's going to have them look at those two facilities too, and the funding might have to be different. I'm not sure whether it'll be, you know, the repair budget or a capital budget to do those two areas, but we're going to work on those also. And just let you know is that individual students at the schools right now, they already have a system similar to this. So if they need help, the teacher actually wears a mic all day long, and then the child wears something like this and gets the assistance all day long. But for the public space, we don't. So we're going to work forward to try and do that.
Great.
Excellent. So now we're going to get our pictures taken. Is that what's going to happen? Great. And Pat said we want to get in front of the table here, Pat. Is that what you want us to do? All right.
Where's the photographer?
Who's taking the shot? Pat is?
Passing.
Double duty.
Boy, Pat, you have
She can work still cameras and
multitasking.
video cameras.
Man, man.
All move over here facing me.
So we'll stand behind you guys or with you guys? How's so interesting?
I don't want too wide a shot because the paper won't print, so.
Squeeze in over here. Paul, why don't you just move in? David, you can.
Face this way. I'm gonna take it, open.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me take one more. Smile, everybody.
Cheeseburger. Excellent.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to hear people saying we've done something right.
I'd like to point out that you've done several things right.
Oh, I love that kind of
David, wait till Pat has the camera back on and the sound. Okay?
More.
There was the solo-operated crosswalk
Yeah.
that got put in, the remote participation policy and the equipment that was purchased for that and implemented. The listening devices, we're looking at the van parking space at the community center, and push plates to operate the front doors of Town Hall, which is pretty standard in most places. And it's very difficult for somebody to get through, even just crutches or even just pushing a baby stroller.
Sure.
You know, to get through those doors. So That's what we're working on now.
There's one more. Thanks to the Disability Committee, they fixed the entrance to the library.
That's right.
There's a smooth sidewalk now.
Right,
and
right.
A handicap
That's a big,
spot.
yeah, that's big, yeah.
And thanks to the Disability Committee, in the private sector, the location near C&L Frosty's and the post office and so on has handicap spots right there, close when you come in on the left. All these things would not have happened but for this committee.
That's terrific. That's great. Well, wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, I know Elliot now hears everything we say, which is terrific. I
The
mean, right
night
off the
that-
bat.
The night that he turned that on
Yeah.
and put them in his ears was a priceless
It was,
moment with
wasn't
the
it?
look on his face.
It's like- I've used this now, what have you, about 2 months now we've had this?
Yes.
And it's really been great, this little box. Tonight, I was having trouble with this. I went over to Pat and said, I'm not hearing anything through this. She reached up and turned the switch to on. You'd be surprised what a difference that
That does help. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right. Well, great. Thanks again. That's wonderful. It's great to see you. Appreciate it. All right, we have another wonderful part of the agenda here, which is proclamations. We get to read and sign a couple of proclamations, and it's all about a couple of our young men in town who are going to be receiving the Eagle Scout Award. The Eagle Scout Court of Honor will be held on Sunday, November 17th, 1:30 p.m. at the Pilgrim Church, and they'll be reading our proclamations. I know, Paul, you've attended many of these Eagle
Yeah,
Courts of Honor.
I signed
So-
up for this.
And I'm sure they're counting on you. But what we have are for Dylan Morris Baruti, who led a group of scouts building a new tennis backboard at the Sherborn Town Courts. And Connor Crosby Walsh restored and painted the historic 1858 summer house at the Pine Hill Cemetery in Sherborn. So here we have a couple of nice young men that I've known since they were, at least one of them I know I've known. I'm not sure about Connor, but I've known Dylan since he was, you know, an ECDC or wherever it was, and it's great to see these kids grow up. But in our usual fashion, Paul, since you've got the voice and you can read well, would you read these proclamations? I love it, and then we'll sign them.
I'm the one without the voice.
Yeah, but you're good at it.
But I care a lot about the wonderful program we have here in town that takes these children and makes them into adults, responsible, caring adults. My hat's off to all the parents and they don't call them coaches, but scoutmasters and all of those who have put in so much. Anyway, proclamations are as follows. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Sherborn, a proclamation, whereas, and each proclamation has the name of the recipient. This one, Dylan Morris Baruti.
Yep.
And the other one, Connor Crosby
Walsh.
has earned the rank of Eagle Scout, and whereas the accomplishment symbolizes his creative examples of service, strong leadership, and organizational skills which have made a difference in our community, and whereas Dylan and Connor have demonstrated his ability to set a goal and exhibited a personal desire and tenacity to follow through successfully. Now, therefore, we, the Selectmen of the Town of Sherborn, on behalf of all its citizens, extend their congratulations and best wishes on this occasion of the Eagle Scouts Award Ceremony. In witness thereof, we have caused the seal of the town to be affixed to this proclamation on the 24th day of October in the year 2013. Signed, Peter Caruso, Paul Durensis, and Mike Giammo. I move that we adopt both proclamations.
Second, all in favor? Great, here we go. Let's sign away, gents. This is terrific.
Blue pen?
Want to use a blue pen?
Blue pen.
I'll borrow your pen,
You
Peter.
bet.
I brought red and black, but not blue.
No, that's all right.
Red and black?
Proud of these guys.
Just use the black on the financial statements.
There you go, Paul. Let's see, this one. Mike, one more?
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
Dylan?
Give it to me, I'll take them to the center.
No, that's a great day in their families' lives and these young men. It's our future leaders. Great. All right, excellent. Now we move on to another exciting part of the agenda, which is talking about the Joint Advisory BOS Warrant Guidance Letter. And I see we have Chair of Advisory, Mary Wolf, here. You guys had your meeting last night, and you guys, as I understand it, approved the letter as been drafted with some provisional authority to you or some authority granted to you to the extent you're comfortable with any changes we might make. This could go out based on our approval, right?
Yes, we approved the letter as printed.
Yep.
We approved the letter as printed minus the first paragraph following January 6th, 2014. So if that came out in its entirety,
Okay.
we'd be good with that and what you said.
Okay.
Rest.
Yep, to the extent we wanted to tweak that in particular.
Right.
So Mike, I know you had some thoughts on
Yeah,
this.
that would be my
So
thinking, is to
I'd
take
love
that
to-
paragraph out that talks about the Board of Selectmen retains the right at its discretion to reopen the 2014 warrant,
I thought
et
that was
cetera.
out. Is this the only copy of?
It's not out yet, Paul, but
It's not out.
I would recommend it come out. I think we have that authority, and I think we can exercise it as appropriate if the circumstances call for it, so we don't
Right.
really need to put that in the letter.
Yeah, it's necessary wording as we understand it. We have the authority under Mass General Law to.
Well, let me, if I could, just take a minute for our viewers to describe that we had a meeting last week with advisory. The entire Board of Selectmen attended, the entire advisory committee was in attendance also. And at that meeting, two developments took place. The first is that I made my annual motion that there be no override this year, and
There's a goal for no override, just to
Goal.
be particular about
the Board of Selectmen voted 3-0 in favor of that goal of a no override year. And advisory, I believe, was unanimous in joining us. So the message that we're sending to the community and to the budget makers is that our goal is to live within our means this year and to have no operating override. And the second piece that we worked on was a letter which is entitled the 2004
2014.
2014 Warrant Guidance Letter, which is a letter that goes to all elected officials, town department heads, town committee chairs, school superintendent, and citizens of Sherborn, and it outlines the process by which articles will come before town meeting. And the purpose of the letter is summed up in the last paragraph, which I hope is still there, which is the Sherborn Selectmen and the Advisory Committee share the goal of an orderly and collegial annual town meeting. A warrant containing fully vetted and well-documented articles will promote thoughtful deliberations and informed decision-making by the voters. The Selectmen and the Advisory Committee believe that these guidelines, the 2014 warrant table, and notice of intent will further this shared goal. And so what this letter does is set out a timeline and asks all those who have issues for town meeting, which is our legislative body, to follow this roadmap so that we can be ready for town meeting, be well-informed, and that the voters will have a collegial and fully vetted and well-documented issues to decide. Town meeting has been set for April 29th, and if necessary, April 1st, May 1st, 2014. So the issue, both boards at the meeting last week agreed to this letter. This is not a new letter. We have sent this out in prior years. Both have agreed in principle to send out this letter. The issue before us tonight is finalizing the language and issuing it.
So one other question I had, Mary, and I don't know if you've got final input on the attached notice of intent with a form that goes attached with this letter. There was some discussion last week of, minor changes to this. My notes were that we were considering putting in a time frame limitation, if you will, on the dollar warrant items. And the other piece was some identification of who was to carry the ball forward, assuming approval of the thing. So I don't know if, and I think Ben was going to take a look at that.
Yeah, and we sent, Ben, actually, between the two of us, editing and so forth, we sent David some.
So you have an updated version, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that will be not in the letter itself, but on the notice of intent.
I understand that, but that form is an attachment to this letter, right?
On that topic, a couple other comments. One is just a spacing issue on the form where the no and the unsure are next to each other. It's a little confusing. I would say provide more space on that. The other is we've asked people to fax it back, and I'm not sure how many people still use faxes. I would be great if this could be on our website and something that could be emailed in, whether it goes to David or it goes to you, Mary, and Peter, or whoever. We'd have to figure that out, but probably David's the right person. And just have it so you could fill it out online and mail it in.
We should make sure that there is full communication, so if something goes to advisory, please send it to us, and if something comes here to David or to any of us, it goes to you.
Right.
So the whole idea is everybody knows what is coming.
Absolutely.
And then one other point was the question on the bottom, type of presentation requested at public hearing and town meeting. And I wonder how many people are going to know at the time they initially think about an article what type of presentation they're looking for. I wonder if we need to lock people in this early on that kind of a question, or wait until the hearing and ask it at that time.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to lock in right away. I mean, we have the equipment for our here. Typically, what I've seen happen is when we have people in to talk about their articles, originally not the public hearing, but at one of our public meetings, a number of people will want to bring presentations, which they then use again at the public hearing, and which ultimately make their way to the floor of ATM. Other people don't, and occasionally people have wanted to bring something in at the end, but I don't think from advisory's point of view that we care so early in the process.
And I think the moderator will ask that question in preparing for town meeting. It's just something that may be intimidating for somebody who wants to put an article in. I would suggest that come out as well.
All right, I don't know that anybody locks anybody in on that, but it's, and ultimately the moderator determines what happens at town meeting. It sounds like you're flexible at your
I'm fine with it.
your sessions of public hearings, so I don't have any skin in the game on that one.
I think it's useful in the sense that if somebody knows it at the time, it sets out some idea of how we budget our time.
Yeah, if or just if known, or
If no,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, put that in parens,
if known in parens, and then TBD.
and then a little TBD section there,
That's
David.
great.
Something like that. That's good input. Great. And you will separately be so on this letter, before we take a vote on it to approve it with the changes, we would, through the TA's office, distribute this. Isn't that how we normally do it? Does anybody have any recollection, Diane, that we normally do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do it out of the TA office so that it gets to all the right recipients. Separately, you, advisory, will issue your budget guidance letter. I don't know when you're expecting to do that, but to the extent you, it's here.
Mary sent it to me today, so I will get it.
So you're working on it, and it will go out in the near future as well, is what you're,
Right.
you've already approved the,
We voted it last night.
Okay.
And we're good to go. I sent it to Jeannie, and I just, when I saw it there, I saw a page break in a place that wasn't showing up on my machine, so I just told her to fix.
and just so that, in case department heads are wondering and so forth, your general guidance is 1.4%, and you've taken some great pains, as we know from last week's meeting, to determine that amount that you're going to project for achieving a non-override budget. If there's anything else you wanted to say while you're here, and we've got a microphone to facilitate the process, you are certainly welcome. No? Okay. Okay.
I want to be sure we got all of Michael's changes.
I think we got them, yeah.
I have two versions here, and one was in the packet and it's marked draft. Throw this one out.
So what I
The
have,
second one?
all right, so what I have is we're pulling out this paragraph below January 6, 2014. We have some, and we've clarified the dates, so we made all that typo stuff. And then we're changing the notice of intent, it's 2014 notice of intent. You've got some inputs from Ben, and we have inputs that we just discussed about adding type of presentation, blah, 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 if known in parens. And then a little TBD with a line and some spacing on known and unsure.
Yeah, and just a question on the open warrant. So we're going to open it
Yeah,
three
that's-
days before the notices are due. So it's a formal opening, but people are encouraged to send these notices in November,
That's
even though the
right. And that's
warrant is not
partly
open.
what this does, is gives
Yeah.
them a heads up. That's right.
Good.
And it's consistent with past practice.
Yep.
We were December 3rd last year, so.
Yeah, I
No
mean,
need to wait.
it's different than the way some places work. Some places wouldn't want a warrant article if the warrant wasn't open, or they wouldn't want it formally submitted, but we like it to be formally submitted before the warrant
Well,
is
it's a,
formally
it's a
open.
notice of intent is what's being submitted. It isn't the
True,
article.
true, it's not the
So
article.
it's really more, it's a tool that's facilitated this whole process of getting to town
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. Just
And,
wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, and I
That's
think the original
structure.
drafter of this was Jim Murphy, because I remember he sent this to us on advisory when I was on it, and we tried to get it implemented with not a lot of success, but since you've been involved, Mary and Mark and so forth, you guys got good compliance from everybody doing this, so it's been very helpful.
Let me just pick up on a theme that Michael just mentioned. The whole point of this is we need more time to process warrant articles. So we're trying to move things earlier. That was Michael's point. Doesn't matter whether it's November 2nd, as he said. What matters is treat advisory and the planning board and the capital budget committee with courtesy. Give them time to fully investigate the ideas that people have to present articles. The earlier those ideas surface, the better they can be looked at and vetted. So the door is open. We haven't voted to open the warrant, but if something comes in, it will get into the hopper.
It's particularly good for us because we don't start real budget hearings with people, with the department heads until after they submit their budgets, which is until December 31st. So if people have warrant articles that either don't involve money or are unconnected to a budget in a formal way, citizens petitions and so forth, then we're very happy to get those early because we can start hearing them in December when we can't hear, Rick come in, and tell us about his budget because he hasn't finished it yet.
What are you picking on me for?
Well, just because you're there. So, it's advantageous to us to have that extra time as well.
Great. All right, well, I'll take a motion to approve this warrant, 2014 warrant guidance letter with NOI attachment as amended based on our
So
discussion.
moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, thanks very much. Really appreciate it,
Thanks,
Mary.
Mary.
Thank you, Jeannie, for sticking through on that. And you've got all the changes, Dave, and if there's any questions, Mary isn't hard to find, and neither am I, right? Okay.
take 5.
Absolutely. You want to take a 2-minute recess here, Mike? Yep. Okay. 2-minute recess. Yeah, we don't need that.
I'm sure the chief would talk about his budget anytime.
Yeah,
November, October, June.
he's always selling his.
Out of the room.
Yeah, okay, we're back. Thank you for your patience, and this moves us on to administrative reports from town officials and committees. The last part of this session in front of the camera.
Yeah, I just had a few things that I wanted to mention. One was the appointment list of vacant appointments.
Yeah,
And I think we'll just keep plugging at those. If you're interested in filling a vacant seat, please contact our office or look on the website, and that has the list on the website as well. There's a seat on the Agricultural Commission, 1 seat on the Cable TV Advisory Committee, 3 seats available on Disability Advisory Committee, 1 seat on Elder Housing, 3 seats on Energy Committee, 1 seat on Farm Pond Advisory Committee, 2 seats or more, or a few more on Groundwater Protection, 5 seats Historical Commission. Historic District Commission has 2 seats available. Open Space and Recreation Plan Implementation has a number of seats. And Personnel Committee has 1 seat, and Revenue Development Committee has 1 seat.
so the best approach, go to the website, and then the instructions are clear on how to say, I'm interested in this particular committee.
Right, and then contact us, our office, fill out the form, and then we'll bring it into you for consideration.
Okay, excellent.
This week, I met with Fire Chief Morrissey to look at the fire department HVAC capital project. We'll meet again next week with the engineer, and after that, we should have an update on what is happening there. I think there was some things kicked around that the money that was approved was short, but the money that was approved will be able to do most of that system. So we may have to do it in 2 phases, but I think we could get most of what we originally intended on getting done.
Within the,
Yeah, we'll know more after we meet with the engineer next week, and then I'll report back what the actual time schedule is and what's being done.
yeah,
Met early in the week with the Council on Aging, heard their concerns about the Pulte development on Maple Street, and they had a concern about the price point of units, and they're composing a letter to Pulte directly. When we get a copy of that, we'll share it with the selectmen. We're knee-deep in employee evaluations, about 2 years behind, but we're getting them done.
and when you say we, David, are you talking about your area or the town-wide? Because every employee merits an annual personnel evaluation, whether it's falls under your wing or somebody
We
else's.
sent out a reminder to every department, even outside of the departments outside of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah,
And we've been following up with each of them to report back on their progress with evaluating their employees.
Good,
So, and Diane and I are tracking that, so
excellent, that's
nobody,
great.
nobody will fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Well, it's just fair to the employees, isn't it?
Yeah. The Traffic Safety Committee met last night and took a vote regarding the Western Ave Whitney Street intersection. They voted to improve signage and lane markings with no physical changes of the intersection, other than a flat imprinted type small island in the middle. And also voted was to create a three-way stop intersection at the Woodland and Mill Street intersection where it's coned off now for two. They voted to pull all that stuff out and go ahead and mark it with 3 stop signs for the winter and see how it goes till next spring.
Great, great. So how do we then do that? What do we do? Like Ed will follow through on that sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Actually, it was nice. We all talked about this before. And then Diane went to the meeting and represented us and
Okay.
voiced what we were looking for. And
Just let me throw in a little legal problem here. Every stop sign needs to be approved by the Board of Selectmen.
there we go.
All
So
in
we'll get
favor?
that on an agenda.
Yeah, I'll take a motion.
Well, there should be some notice. It's
Some
not on
notice?
the
Okay, well,
agenda.
If we can figure out how to do that right,
Yeah.
let's do it right.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out.
So there'll be unapproved stop signs, but they'll
That's-
be up
That's right. He had,
for our next meeting, hopefully.
yeah, that's right. That was brought up before, and we were saying that it was a temporary
Yeah.
test setup, but now
Okay.
they voted to do it, so we'll bring it back to a vote for you. That was a
Okay.
good point.
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara.
And the last thing was an observance that was brought to my attention by an employee who thought it would be good if we noted that former longtime employee B. McCarthy's wife, Mary, passed away on October 10th, and she was 104 years old.
Wow.
And she was predeceased by her husband, who
Wow.
worked at CM&D in the highway department.
Wow.
And that's,
Condolences to the family, but 104.
yeah.
She was
Incredible.
wonderful. She's a wonderful
Really, you knew her,
person.
Paul? Yes.
Yeah.
David, going back to Whitney Street and Western, is there money left over in that warrant article that's going to be turned back to the town?
We don't know at this point. This was the traffic safety vote. This wasn't the Western Ave intersection committee vote. So,
Isn't that money in traffic safety?
no.
Sure.
Maybe it is.
I-
I don't think so.
No, that was a warrant article that approved the changes that they were doing, but then when it went to the testing and we had approved, or you guys approved, I sat out there, spending money for videotaping a test and
Right.
marking and, so forth. And I guess they then recently did another test and
I haven't
neither
seen
test is
anything
proving it.
specifically putting that under the authority of the traffic safety committee.
Okay.
They also have another.
The article
intersection.
was Western Avenue, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
And that's
and Brooks.
something that I voiced before about the way some of the articles appear,
Two articles.
Yeah, I don't know.
and that we track them, and after town meeting, who ends up with it.
So,
There was a second intersection too. the
Brook Street, yeah.
Intersection that they also were working on. The money was split over more than one
and that
intersection.
was like 60,000 or something that was authorized for those two changes?
I'll double check it and let you know.
Yeah, just,
That's,
I think we've seen some correspondence recently. There's some very strong citizen opinion about that intersection. There
Yeah.
have been previous
You think?
comments by bicyclists and others,
right.
and we shouldn't keep pouring money down a hole. If it's not a
Right.
good idea, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, I'm meeting with the committee chair tomorrow morning, and we'll discuss some of those issues. and
Good.
Report back to you.
Can I ask you two things, David? I don't know if you can update. Do you know, 2 weeks ago, we had Ruth in, and one of the things was to update 2013, that report, so we can get it on the website, because right now we're sitting with the 2012 one. Do
Right.
you know when she's likely to do that, or?
We can, I'll have to meet with her and get.
She's away
a
this week,
timeframe on
right?
that.
Yeah, and maybe get an update how she's doing on that free cash thing that's near and dear to everybody's heart.
Right.
The other thing, I don't know if you can talk about the Pine Hill Road, emergency access road, what's going on there at this stage beyond what's obvious?
Several people have tried to drive up it, and the fire chief intercepted them, and who happened to be there at the same time. So CM&D is going to put a gate barrier towards the
Yep.
streets end of it.
Were these people who were lost, how did they make their way up there? What,
They wanted to check out the road.
Yeah, curiosity.
Yeah, yeah,
It's their road, they're taxpayers, they own it.
there they are.
yeah.
Let's find out where it went.
It's one of those great human traits. It's what brought all kinds of advances.
Yeah, on this,
Yes, sir.
on this Pine Hill Access Road, a few people have asked me how many houses are gonna be built in there. And I think everyone should find out now on TV land that it's just an access emergency road to Pine Hill School. It is owned on both sides by town forest, and there's no plans for any other houses in the foreseeable future.
Yes, it's just an emergency access
Next
road.
200 years,
Yeah,
perhaps.
And it was approved at town meeting, this most recent town meeting, and my understanding is we're coming in under budget on that, so all the work that's
Yes.
been done will be less than the 80,000 that the voters approved.
Right, we've pulled, we've only paid 2 bills.
Okay, yeah.
So we're going to give you a report that shows what was approved and how much has been paid out.
Right.
But there is surprisingly a lot more left over than
Yeah,
what we
and
expected.
everything they did, it would serve as the base to the extent the state ponies up the $1 million that they've earmarked.
It has a
couple
full
years
base,
ago.
just like any other road
Roadway.
surface would have.
Yeah, and that was one of the intents of the,
Yeah, and the
effort.
drainage is, was engineered out where the water would flow to and where the water would pool up and.
and the
So it's-
approved plans is what was used to put that road in,
The
correct?
road that's there is exactly what was engineered, designed.
And approved
yeah,
by the voters?
Yeah.
Okay,
It was all staked off.
Yep.
Trees near the road were marked
great.
for removal and,
I think there was more than just a town meeting vote. I think it also was a ballot question.
Yes, that's right,
This was a debt excluded amount, so
Right,
it passed
right.
town meeting and
that's correct,
the voters at the ballot box.
right.
that's correct.
But I'm impressed with the job that was done up there. There are a lot of people to thank, even the contractor who has worked with us on keeping the costs down and doing it on an hourly rate where we're controlling every hour that they work as opposed to
Yeah,
a lump sum contract amount.
well, and I've heard that our 3 chiefs, the blue, the red, and the green chief are quite happy with this emergency access capability. The superintendent's thrilled, he was at a recent meeting, and Frank Hess in the back there, I hope you're smiling on this effort. Yeah.
It'll be great when I ask for a helicopter through capital budget this year. We can land it right in the center of that, so.
It's good.
But now we can turn you down because we can say you can use the emergency.
That's right.
Rick, if you can get a helicopter with 1.4% increase in your
I can
budget,
do
more
it.
power to you.
I can do it, Mike.
You're the man. That's terrific, thanks, David.
Okay,
Anything else, you got anything else there for
No,
us?
just the warrant signing.
Yep.
Which is the off-week warrant.
Right. So we have a warrant. I've taken a look at it. It's the off-week warrant. It includes some West Suburban Health Group. So the amount of it's $138,100.71. So I take a motion for approval of that warrant, number 17.
So moved.
Second?
Second. Okay, sure.
Second. All in favor? Great. We'll sign
Also
that.
wanted to set the next meeting date.
Yep,
Next Thursday night's Halloween.
yeah.
That anyone.
I thought we were meeting at your house.
What,
What's for
You're
dinner?
welcome.
what
to
do we,
it, Yeah.
what do we wear? What do we wear?
Yeah.
Well, so that's a tough night for you, I imagine, with little ones and whatnot. I understand that.
We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it rains.
Yeah,
No.
but that doesn't necessarily, you have any objections to a meeting next week without a town administrator?
Thursday?
On Thursday?
No.
Usual time, usual place?
Quick meeting on Thursday? Sure.
Meeting on Thursday, you up for that, Paul? All right, let's tentatively schedule that, we'll see what we have for an agenda.
Mhm.
We may wind up with not enough to,
No,
Fill the
we've been
void,
going
but we-
forward as if there is a meeting,
yes,
so.
yeah, good. And you're away this.
No, I made plans. I should be able to get back for the
Okay,
Saturday.
okay, all right. Good, so to the extent there's some ideas, I'd like to invite our treasurer in one night to talk to us about we're doing with, an education on the pension plan and OPEBs and just,
I had thrown out there.
I don't know if he's willing, you mentioned it to these guys to see.
Well, I had thrown out one time before inviting Tom Gibson in, who was the chair of the Middlesex Retirement. And I know he's in and out of the area, so
That would be great. Yeah.
he's probably hasn't been in here to
No.
talk about that, but it would be
No,
good to
that'd
do
be
that.
good if he has sort of a boilerplate talk to educate us, and in the meantime, if there's materials we can look at to review and be a little bit smarter about to ask some
Right.
not so stupid questions.
So we could
right?
have the accountant and the treasurer in
Yeah,
with
yeah,
him.
wouldn't that be a fun night?
Yeah.
But
You
an
can't do
important
that
night.
next week when you're not here.
No, we don't, not next week, but let's try and move that around. And I know Mike had something he wanted to get on an agenda, maybe next week's would be a one-day
That's
ZBA thing.
fine, yeah, just right,
Brief thing.
just a proposal for a quick zoning change.
Which could be an NOI, one of the things we could put on there talking about how to do warrants, articles and so forth, and ones we might want to bring forward.
That for a possible notice of intent.
Good.
Okay, yeah, because that's what this sounds like,
Perfect.
yeah, good, all right. Anything else we gotta worry about in this section?
We're still going to bring that back, right? We're going to talk about that on an agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Anything from you gents, before we move the ball along here?
I understand the planning board met with the Pulte Homes last night.
Interesting.
Did we get any reports? Did anybody go? As to what happened? Guess not.
No,
I saw, it was John Higley I saw from the Energy Commission, who's the chair of the planning board, out in the parking lot this morning. He just gave me a brief overview that, folks were there with questions, the Pulte folks were there, gave still just a general conceptual plan is what I understand. And it was a fairly cordial, civil meeting, so.
well, if they're going to have a zoning change on this year's warrant, we know what the schedule is for that, and they'll have to adhere to that schedule
Yeah,
and line their ducks up before then.
yeah.
Are they still at 66 houses?
I think so. I think they're at the same acreage and number of units and price points and so forth. I don't think they've really put pencil to paper beyond what they
90
presented to
acres,
the,
66
revenue
units.
development. Yeah,
Average price, 650,000.
yeah, so. But he wasn't bruised and battered, so that was a good thing.
I was at that meeting
Okay.
last night, and before the meeting, everybody started saying, the planning board gonna vote to approve this tonight. And the thing that came out in that meeting, and I think our TV viewers should know, is that property has to be voted by a 2/3 town meeting vote at next April's town meeting before they can do anything up there. So,
Well, it's not just the zoning change. The property happens to be in 61B,
Right.
which means there's a lien on the property in favor of the town. Town has an option of right of first refusal on the property. And
Have we been given any kind of notice on that?
no,
Paul?
No.
I've
Yeah,
been
no.
monitoring that, and there's been no
Okay.
notice. So our time, 120 days, I think it is now, with the newest amendments to 61B,
Right, that's right. It's 120 days.
hasn't begun to run.
That's right.
So things aren't serious yet until that letter arrives. So I think part of what's going on is that they are testing the waters.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure, yeah.
and as we know, the Board of Health will have to approve all the wells and septic and later approvals of the roads and what all with conservation. So it's not anything that's gonna happen overnight up there.
It's a long-
Well, there's an extensive
long way off.
process that
And
has to
if the
take
town meeting
place.
votes no, then they can probably go in there and put in maybe 20 houses or so. But,
Unless they go 40B.
40B is always their option.
You still have a right of first refusal on the land, that's the.
That's right. There
We
you
do have
go.
a right of first refusal, but we can't take any position on this until it comes before us in some way. And if it does come before us, we need to give them due process and hear what they have to say. So we shouldn't take any
No.
position
I don't think anybody's taking a position, Paul.
on the merits of the project until it arrives. And it'll probably arrive in the form of a request for us to waive our lien on the title so that they can proceed to own the property.
But one of the key points for most citizens is just to be sure they're informed that there is quite an extensive process, culminating, if they fall through with the current plans that have been kicked around, with a 2/3 vote at town meeting. You're absolutely right. So there's a long ways to go before getting there. So I think the other thing is people want to be aware of when the topic is coming up at various boards and committees. So the key to that is to check the town's website for various meetings where agendas are posted in advance and so forth. There's no automatic notice capability, although some committees I know do inform abutters and things like that, but.
And David, just in terms of future items, that leads to something that's been, I think we've talked about it before, but just a further discussion about the Revenue Enhancement Committee and its charge, and maybe even some type of a workshop where we start to think about other revenue enhancement ideas and have that kind of discussion.
Okay. Yeah, there was, when I did that presentation on the committees, when we were looking at sunsetting them, there were several updates to charges that we need to talk about.
Yeah, we
Yes.
still gotta do that, yeah.
And
So
that
we,
would be good for the revenue.
So we should put that on.
yeah, maybe get another one of these workshops lined up in the not-too-distant future. November. Wow. I'll see you in June.
Winter away.
All right. Well, then, given all of that, I think we've covered our agenda here. So I will move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's collective bargaining and litigating position. And the chair so declares pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, A3, with respect to pending collective bargaining and the following pending cases. Cannon et al. Versus the Town of Sherborn Zoning Board of Appeals et al. Cannon et al. Versus the Town of Sherborn Planning Board et al. And pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, 21A2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief, police lieutenant, town administrator. The board will not return to open session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Okay, the motion is seconded by Mr. Gymo. Having a second, we will now have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis.
Yes.
Mr. Gymo.
Yes.
And I, Mr. Crusoe, vote yes. Having passed by a vote of 3-0, the open session is now closed. Good night, and we are now heading into executive session. Thank you very much.
I need 3 minutes before I come to executive session.
All right.